You live in Israel or you are preparing for your Aliyah? Congratulations. You have a smartphone? Perfect. Download the Olim app for free and discover everything we have to offer. Booking medical and administrative appointments, bills paying, debt verification, instant translation, contractor recommendation, request tracking, and much more. And if you can't manage it on your own, our team speaks your language and assists you with all your procedures in Israel, starting from 199 shekels per month, unlimited and for the whole family. Don't hesitate any longer. Download the app or contact us.
Welcome to this special edition of I-24 News. I'm Nicole Zedek live in Tel Aviv. This Saturday, June 21st, and Israel is 9 days into Operation Rising Lion, Israel's war with Iran. For the first time since the war started on June 13th, an Iranian drone managed to hit a home in northern Israel's Beit She'an. No one was injured, but this is the first damage one of the Iranian drones has caused. Still, with more than 1,000 drones fired in a little over a week, the IDF has a 99% success rate in shooting these drones down. Now, at the same time, the Israeli Air Force continues to operate deep inside Iran, striking the Isfahan nuclear site for the second time since Operation Rising Lion began. Here's what IDF spokesman Brigadier General Efi Defrin said about the recent strikes.
Overnight, we inflicted further damage to the Isfahan nuclear site and to other locations in western Iran. On screen, you can see a site where uranium reconversion takes place, the stage following uranium enrichment, part of the nuclear weapons production process. As part of the operation's opening salvo, we struck this site. Last night, we struck it again, this time with a broader assault to increase our achievements. In last night's strikes, we also hit another site used for centrifuge production, in addition to 2 similar sites we attacked in Tehran last week. This is a cumulative damage to the Iranian regime's nuclear production capability.
Over the next 2 hours, we will continue to discuss all of these latest breaking developments. And joining me in studio to discuss it all is our I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran. Ariel, we're hearing from the IDF spokesperson once again a strike on Isfahan, one of Iran's nuclear sites. The significance of a strike like this as well, he already slightly hinted at it, but what are we seeing as far as the latest IDF moves inside Iran?
Well, the latest is that Israel is carrying out a wave of airstrikes in southwestern Iran, concentrating on IRGC and Iranian armed forces sites in that area of the Khuzestan province, mainly strikes in Ahvaz. Numerous footage is coming out of showing massive pillars of smoke as a result of these Israeli strikes. Now, these are areas that are believed to house also ballistic missile launch sites, production, storage facilities, going after Iran's ballistic missile program to protect the Israel home front. But as you described in your opening, the Isfahan nuclear site, that is one of the key sites in Iran's nuclear program. It is responsible for converting enriched uranium to material suitable for a warhead. So we know there's the Natanz Fordo, those are the sites for enriching, and this site in Isfahan is intended to take it the next step. Once you have the enriched uranium, how do you turn it into material that you can put it into a nuclear bomb? And this is part of the multi-layered nuclear program that Iran has, because it's not one facility responsible with one task of the program. It is split into a variety of different facilities, also for protection purposes, in order to make it more difficult to destroy its nuclear program in one shot. But also there are a lot of different elements in play here, so to spread it out. And so Israel has gone after Natanz numerous times, also gone after the Arak heavy water reactor. It's inactive, but it still serves for enriching weapons plutonium to a lower level than weapons grade, but still something that can be advanced. And you also have here, Isfahan. You also have other nuclear research sites in Tehran. So as you see, Israel continues to go, it's kind of like a whack-a-mole, going after different sites. But this Isfahan site, as you mentioned, not the first time Israel went after it, is one of the more significant prongs in Iran's nuclear program. And so going after that as it continues to try and degrade its missile capabilities.
So they're degrading their nuclear sites. You mentioned this whack-a-mole. These sites kind of spread out throughout Iran, but one of the main ones that we have Israel yet to truly touch is Fordow. The reason that this being is it's likely believed that Israel cannot fully penetrate Fordow, which is miles underneath in a fortified bunker, this nuclear facility, without the help of the United States. But when you talk then about actually degrading Iran's nuclear capabilities, how significant are all of these little sites without actually going after Fordow? Does this still make a difference?
So what we're seeing now, and I think this is important to kind of put into context, Israel is not destroying Iran's nuclear program. It's setting it back. It is causing damage that could be rebuilt, reestablished once this is over. And so it still remains to be seen when this will all end and what level will Israel have damaged the nuclear program. But as far as we're seeing right now, Israel is not set out to completely destroy the nuclear program for two reasons. One, it will need a lot more damage to these sites. What Israel is doing, it is incapacitating them. It is severely damaging them in a way that will push them back 2, 3, 4 years from a bomb, but not completely destroying. And one of the reasons is also, as I mentioned, these are a lot of sites, but also Israel is limited in what it can do. Also, a lot of not only just hitting the underground part of Fordow. I think Israel does have the capability to do that. Yes, it doesn't have the mother of all bombs like the United States has, or even the father of all bombs, but ultimately, analysts believe that Israel does have the capability if it carries out a string of attacks. But we also know, or the assessment is, that Iran has hid a lot of its enriched uranium in sites where Israel doesn't know where it is. So there is the possibility that even if all the sites are destroyed, Iran will still have the capability to produce a nuclear weapon. And so ultimately, the goal here is to cause enough significant damage in order to convince Iran to forfeit its nuclear program, whether through continued strikes or through the negotiating table. That is obviously the position that currently President Trump is saying that he's opting for. All
right, and we're going to get more into this United States angle later in the show. Ariel, thank you for those updates. Now, meanwhile, as the IDF continues to not only strike Iran's nuclear facilities, also their missile launching capabilities, because once again, overnight, we did see some of these capabilities in action with more barrages fired towards Israel. We want to get an update on that now. Our I-24 News correspondent, Malik Sladin, joins us live from outside the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. Malik, another night of attacks from Iran. What can you share about these latest barrages and drones fired towards Israel as well?
Yes, about 14 hours ago or more, we had this barrage of missiles coming from Iran around 3 a.m. Overnight. About 5 missiles were fired. And according to the IDF, all of them were intercepted. None of them hit any target inside Israel. But one of them, apparently, after being intercepted, a shrapnel fell on a residential building on Holon, and the roof there got in fire. And the firefighting authorities in Israel quickly were able to also deal with that fire as well. And we were witnessing today also waves of drones, something that the Iranians weren't very successful with in the recent days. And today it was the first time that a drone actually fell on a house, on a home in Bet Shan, and that, of course, caused a lot of damage. But as we see, there were no injuries because all of the people that were in that house were inside a protected area, thankfully, of course. And the IDF is saying that more than 1,000 drones were fired from Iran toward Israel since last week. Many of them were intercepted even before entering Israeli airspace. And those who did enter Israeli airspace, we see that they were intercepted, all of them. And we even noticed that Iran is trying to find a new route. Now, the drones are not coming only from the Golan through Syria, but also through Lebanon, and then turning all the way toward Haifa, something that happened also overnight. And even this morning, siren in Eilat in southern Israel, the southernmost part of Israel, also as a result of a drone that was fired from Iran, apparently, and that drone as well was intercepted. So we see that Iran, while they're continuing their barrage of missiles firing toward Israel, they're also trying with the drones.
All right, Belize Ladin, with that update, we'll be coming to you for more updates throughout the broadcast. Thank you so much. Now, the Iranian Supreme Leader, Khamenei, is trying to rally what's left of his proxies to join the fight against Israel, as all of them have been pretty quiet since the conflict broke out 9 days ago. An Israeli security source told I-24 News Khamenei has instructed Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem to enter the fight and launch missiles from Lebanon towards Israel. But Qassem is refusing to join over fears that the IDF will completely destroy Hezbollah. A very interesting development there. And to discuss it more, we're joined now by retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neria, former deputy head of assessment for the Israeli military intelligence and former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Jacques, great to have you with us here on I-24 News, as always. When it comes to these reports that Hezbollah is refusing orders from Iran to join the fight and fire more missiles towards Israel, would Israel even be ready for Hezbollah to join the fight? What strain would this put on the security apparatus?
Well, first of all, for the first time in the Shiite community history in Lebanon, the Shiite community is split. It's split between two main currents. The one that is led by Nabih Berri, the Speaker of the Parliament and head and leader of the Aman movement, and Hezbollah led by Naim Qassem. Nabih Berri says very bluntly, very openly, that there will be no intervention and no implication in the war. It's according to him, it's even 200%. He's 200% sure that this will not happen. On the other side, we just heard the Naim Qassem, the latest speech, where he says very clearly that he will wait for instruction from Iran. It doesn't mean that he doesn't want to intervene. He is hesitating. He's hesitating, but we know that from facts on the ground that Hezbollah is preparing itself. It has prepared a data bank about targets inside Israel. It has prepared the southern villages into a situation where you have some squads, intervention squads in almost every village, not dressed in uniform, but I mean undercover, and they are preparing themselves for an eventuality to intervene in the war. And this is quite obvious, but from the declarations of several members of Hezbollah, definitely Wafiq Safa, the head of the military wing that is forcing Naim Qassem to intervene. And I think it is a matter of time. We've seen today already protests in the south between villages, Shiite villages against UNIFIL. We've seen more than 50 incidents between the Shiite villages against UNIFIL. And I think that the situation is not as calm as we think. It's not as simple as it is. Hesitation is there, but readiness is also there to be taken care of. And the fact is that Israel's assessment is such that Israel has sent 2 more brigades to the northern part of the country in order to be prepared for anything that could happen on this front.
So Israel is ready if, in fact, Hezbollah does decide to join the fight. But all the while, Israel is still also eliminating Hezbollah operatives in southern Lebanon. They recently even killed an operative in Barashit. Does this also send a message then to Hezbollah to further instill fear in Iran's proxy, or is this also just what we've continued to see over the past several months, even since the ceasefire with Hezbollah began?
Yes, Nico, as you may have heard, I mean, there was talk in Lebanon about disarming Hezbollah, about disarming Palestinian factions in Lebanon. Well, this is forgotten. This is forgotten. Hezbollah is not going to disarm, and Palestinian factions that are not, I mean, that are in the living and acting in the refugee camps are not going to disarm. So this is something that we have to take into consideration, that the situation has changed. And there's a big challenge that has been put in front of the Lebanese government by the American administration, and lately by Tom Barak, who has visited Syria and Lebanon. He said very bluntly, I mean, where is this disarmament going on? Nothing is happening. So it means very, very well that situation has come back to point zero, and that all the reforms we thought that the Lebanese government was going to adopt, well, we are facing now a situation where, as Joseph Aoun said very clearly, he said, I mean, we have cleaned 80% or 85% of the area in the southern part of Lebanon. Yes, thank you very much, 85%. But the 15% where Hezbollah is there, you haven't touched. And this is the situation, really 15% that still are very much active there. And this is why we see from time to time Israel acting and targeting either operatives or targets on the ground, caches, and all sorts of things. It means that Hezbollah is still very well living beneath the Litani River, and he's present there, and he's present north of the Litani River also.
Dr. Jacques Neria, stay with us if you can. I want to come back in studio for a quick update. There are some reports, Ariel, about the former bodyguard of slain Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. He has been eliminated in Iran. What details do you have as far as these reports?
Yeah, Abu Ali Khalil, the personal bodyguard of Hassan Nasrallah, the killed leader of Hezbollah, was killed in a strike in Iran. This is according to Iranian media as well as the Associated Press, citing a Hezbollah source. Now, obviously, he failed in his job in protecting Nasrallah because Nasrallah was successfully killed in an Israeli airstrike, but he is seen as one of the closer confidants of Nasrallah, not only responsible for protecting him, but also involved in all the meetings and as a close close part to his ear. So he was involved in a lot of significant decisions in Hezbollah. And so he obviously, after the elimination of Nasrallah, sought refuge in Iran. But I guess he needed his own bodyguard because he was eliminated now.
The IDF continues with these targeted assassinations. Ariel, thank you for that update. Dr. Neria, coming back to you then with this information that the bodyguard of Hezbollah's chief, as we're talking about Hezbollah's capabilities, some of them even fled to Iran for refuge following the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. After hearing this news, these reports, I just want your reaction quickly.
Well, very quickly, I mean, Hezbollah is still a target, and the operatives of Hezbollah and the leaders and the chiefs of Hezbollah are still targeted by Israel, and this will continue as long as Hezbollah will try to defy Israel and defy also the Lebanese government by not accepting the hegemony of the Lebanese government over its body. And this is basically Hezbollah is fighting for its life. It's either fighting Israel or disappear.
Retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neria, great to have you with us, as always, and hear your insight. Now, not only are Iran's proxies suffering abroad, but inside Iran, the IDF is targeting those who help the proxies. In a major elimination, the IDF killed the man who funded and armed the Hamas terror group ahead of the October 7th massacre. Saeed Izzadi was the head of the Palestine Corps and the IRGC's Quds Force, and one of the few people who knew about Hamas's plans for October 7th. Well, he was killed overnight in a safe house in the city of Qom, thanks to a prolonged intelligence effort, according to the IDF, further deteriorating Iran's proxies both inside and outside of the country. For more, we're joined now by Intifad Kanbar, president and founder of the Kurdish Protection Action Committee and former spokesman for the Deputy Prime Minister of Iraq. Intifad, let's start with the collapse, it seems, of Iran's proxy networks. This has major significance for how it is able to wage wars around the region, how we're feeling that war here in Israel. And so how are we seeing the impact of the collapse of these proxies for Iran?
I don't think Iran has much proxies left. What is in Iraq now are factions who are, by the way, I have very strong sources in Iraq telling me that some of the drones coming to Israel coming from Iraq, especially from the southern city of Basra, and some of the middle-range missiles coming from the western part of Iraq through these militias. But honestly, those people are nothing compared to Hezbollah, which was the jewel of Iran proxies. And that has been destroyed. And I think if they ever attack Israel now, that will be the end of them, because that means the United States will not going to sit idle doing nothing. We got to remember, this is all started, the deterioration of Iran, by the killing of Qasem Soleimani by this current President Trump, and his allowance to Israel, giving Israel the green light to attack Iran this time, is also a major strategic transformation. I think Iran has tried and succeeded for almost 40 years to push the battle outside their borders. But now, when the battle becomes inside their borders, with zero air force, with zero air defense, with very much penetrated by the Mossad and the Israeli intelligence, this is a lost war. I fought against Iran for 5 years, and I served in the Iraqi Air Force. So I know exactly how important for any country to have Air Force and air defense. And without these two, and also completely compromised intelligence for Iran, this is a lost war for Iran.
Intifada, very interesting to hear your personal perspective there. Now, the main question also at this hour still remains if the United States is going to join Israel's fight and attack Iran itself. But are there fears, U.S. fears of Iranian proxy attacks if Washington does join the fight? Or is the U.S. not truly worried about this because of the degradation that you already just mentioned?
I think what's most important is President Trump a very clear support for Israel. I think that's what's most important. If the United States use their B-2 bombers to bomb the further nuclear reactors, that we an added plus for Israel. I think Israel can handle it in many ways. I think Israel is capable of doing it on its own. And I think the United States want to participate because this is something, not only a problem for Israel, it's a problem for the United States, problem for the whole world. If Iran has 9 atomic bombs and strategic ballistic missiles, that means they can hit all the allies with the atomic bomb, including the United States. So this is not only the problem of Israel, this is also the problem of the world. Unfortunately, Europe has done nothing, but the United States and Britain together are doing much more, including France also. We should give some credit to France. But I think, generally speaking, without the leadership of President Trump, we wouldn't see this total destruction of this heinous regime who imposed mayhem and killing and death on the region and the world for 40 years.
Intifada, what about what's happening inside Iran as far as the Kurdish groups? Some Kurdish groups, they say they are ready to mobilize and even challenge the Iranian regime if needed. How significant is these Kurdish groups inside Iran right now?
I can't tell you about how much damage happened because of the Biden appeasement policy to Iran. The Iranians imposed on the Kurdish government in Erbil to remove all Kurdish opposition, Iranian Kurdish opposition parties from Kurdistan, which they've been there for 40 years, by the way. And when Iran imposed this condition on them, the Biden administration did not stand with the Kurdish government and allowed those bases to be removed. And this could have been a big problem for Iran if they have continued to stay. But again, we're paying for the weakness of the Biden's national security group who are advising him, and the weakness and the appeasement of Iran. We lost those Kurdish opposition bases bordering Iran. They could have made much difference now. But I think the Kurdish people are very lively people, and they will continue to fight for their rights. And I think with the help of the United States and Israel and the world, they're going to get their rights inside Iran, and they're going to have their own autonomous rule. We hope so.
Okay, Intifada Kambar, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of I-24 News. I want to come back here in studio to our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran, as we're talking about the degradation of Iran's proxies all abroad. As more and more leaders are now being killed inside Iran, IRGC senior commanders in the IRGC this weekend, will they try and put more pressure on what's left of their proxies, and how? Because if the IRGC is then weakened, how will they then enforce that pressure on their proxies that so far have been lacking to commit to this fight against Israel?
Right. So 2 points on that. One, yes, Israel has eliminated the top leadership of not only the IRGC, but also the Iranian armed forces, which are separate but working together. The Iranian armed forces are the standing army of Iran. The IRGC is intended to maintain the longevity of the Islamic Revolution and the Islamic Republic. So the two do work hand in hand. Israel's shaved off the top leadership levels of those two bodies, but they have many generals and they have already filled those vacancies. Some of those new appointments have also been eliminated, but Iran has no shortage of experienced, well-versed generals. But what it does do is it disrupts command and control, and also it hurts morale. But in terms of organization kind of structure, that has remained intact. That is one thing. And the other part is with regards to the proxies. Now, your question couldn't have come at a better timing, because really, just as you were speaking, the Houthis, they put out a statement threatening the United States from joining this conflict, saying that any American attack on Iran will be responded in kind by the Houthis, putting in jeopardy the ceasefire reached between Trump and the Houthis, saying that they will target U.S. ships and warships in the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz. So we are seeing that the threat level is rising, not only from the Houthis. We've also heard over the past week from Kataib Hezbollah, one of the leading pro-Iranian militia in Iraq, threatening to go after American forces in Iraq if the United States does join. And this is what is the main concern, that it's not just going to be, currently it's Israel-Iran, that it will just be the United States joining in, and then it will be more lopsided. No. The potential of the United States joining this conflict will change drastically the current situation, will turn it into a much more regional conflict. And that's why also a lot of America's own allies in the region who are hosting American bases, they're concerned, and my understanding is they're also pressuring the United States to sit this one out.
All right, we're going to get much more into this exact angle when we come back. Will or won't the United States join the fight? That is the big question at this hour. Ariel Osran, stay with us in studio. We're going out for a quick break here on I-24 News, but when we come back, so much more to discuss, especially when it comes to exactly how the United States is playing this game and what U.S. President Donald Trump plans to do. As he himself says, nobody knows what I'm going to do. We're going to discuss that. Stay with us here on I-24 News.
You live in Israel or you are preparing for your Aliyah? Congratulations. You have a smartphone? Perfect. Download the Olim app for free and discover everything we have to offer. Booking medical and administrative appointments, bills paying, debt verification, instant translation, contractor recommendation, request tracking, and much more. And if you can't manage it on your own, our team speaks your language and assists you with all your procedures in Israel, starting from 199 shekels per month, unlimited and for the whole family. Don't hesitate any longer. Download the app or contact us.
Copper, heat therapy, cold therapy, Thermalite warm-up, microcurrent tech, extension handle. This is the ProSage Thermo Copper, the latest percussion massage gun tech advancement available from Evertone. The ProSage Thermo Copper is the only 6-in-1 percussion massage gun with warm-up technology, hot and cold therapy, microcurrent, and now are you ready for this? The benefits of copper. Get deep muscle warm-up technology and a professional athlete-level massage for full body recovery and relief. Back in 2018, Evertone's invention of the ProSage created the craze in the market for advanced professional-level percussion massage. Featured on The Talk, Entertainment Tonight, CNN, and others. The ProSage Thermo Copper 6-in-1 is a powerful percussion massager with our patented Theralite warm-up technology, advanced copper head therapy with unique copper benefits, our proprietary heat therapy head for deep muscle penetration, and the cold therapy head for soreness and inflammation. Microcurrent tech for pain recovery and restoration, and it even comes with our newest extension handle, so you can reach anywhere on your body. This makes the cordless ProSage Thermocopper 6-in-1 with 5 unique massage heads, the most advanced professional level massage gun available. The gold standard in massage guns is now the ProSage Thermocopper with targeted pain relief.
Welcome back to this special edition of I-24 News. 9 days in to Israel's war with Iran, and the big question remains of whether or not the United States will join Israel in destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. It's long been believed that Israel needs American B-2 bombers carrying bunker busters to fully destroy the underground nuclear facility at Fordow. Well, according to flight tracking data, 6 B-2 bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri and are heading toward the American base in Guam Island in the Pacific Ocean. Now, last we heard, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would make his decision on Iran within the next 2 weeks. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is still urging the United States to hold off on any military action if there's any hope for negotiations.
It is obvious I cannot go to negotiation with the United States when our people are under bombardments, under the support of the United States. We have come, unfortunately, to the conclusion that the United States has been in this aggression from the beginning. You know, they deny, they keep saying that they are not involving, but we have many indications that they have been involved from day one. Unfortunately, we have heard that the U.S. may join this aggression. That would be very unfortunate, and I think that would be very, very dangerous for everybody.
For more, we're joined now by Eric Mandel, founder and director of the Middle East Political Information Network, and a senior editor for security at the Jerusalem Report. Eric, we know Israel likely cannot hit Fordow alone, at least not without some major risk. And so do you think that the movement of B-2 bombers is a real sign that the United States is preparing to step in militarily, or is this just another strategic posturing, almost pushing Iran to negotiate, even if it is still under Israeli fire, but not direct U.S. fire?
So thank you for having me. I think we need to look at the tea leaves, who actually has the president's ear. And it is what is reported, at least openly, is that the 3 people who have the presidency right now are Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Steve Witkoff and I believe the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are thought to be the most dovish of that group. What you hear, again, if they're not who's not in the Situation Room, you don't have Tulsi Gabbard, who's the isolationist of the group, but you also don't have Marco Rubio. And I know from times in the Senate that Marco Rubio truly understands the threat of Iran, maybe more than anybody else in the administration. But by deferring a strike for 2 weeks at least, and again, we don't know, it could be less than 2 weeks, could be more than 2 weeks, because the president has changed his mind, are the Iranians concluding that this is a bluff by President Trump? And then what action would be taken? And I think this is a very important point. People think this is just about Fordow, But if it is just about Fordo, this will be a strategic mistake. The United States is going to need to be active for probably days, if not weeks, destroying not only the underground part of Fordo, but also there's still more underground in Natanz and Isfahan. It also means that if they want there not to be another war, that the United States has to help Israel with ballistic storage and missiles, cruise missiles, and drones production, which would also actually help in the war with Ukraine. So the United States, if it does commit, my country has to commit, has to not just think about Fordo. There is more to do to really degrade the nuclear program and set it back years, not just months.
Eric, off of that note, for especially our American audience that is watching this unfold, what is at stake here? Why should the United States even consider joining this war beyond just supporting Israel? There could be some real ramifications actually felt in the United States as well.
Well, first of all, it is America first to have America join its ally here. The president has been incredibly clear for 15 years at least that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So what is it about American national security interests that are affected by Iranian nuclear weapons program and a bomb? They're already pretty close to being a threshold nuclear weapons state. That is really proliferation throughout the Gulf. Because if Iran gets a nuclear bomb, the Arab world is going to want it. And then you're dealing with Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Turkey, Jordan, and you can go on. And then the chance that that could fall into the hands of Sunni jihadists, because none of those regimes are so strong. And then that really turns to a horrific, apocalyptic type of scenario. So stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon is for stability, not only of the region, but for American security interests.
And Eric, Iran's foreign minister says there is still room for diplomacy, but is there? Are we already past the point where negotiations could stop a direct U.S.-Iran clash, or is this also what Trump is hoping for? He wants to see diplomacy.
I believe the president really would like diplomacy and is hoping that the continued Israeli strikes and the movement of these B-2 bombers, first they were in Diego Garcia, and now you have the ones going to Guam, is enough to pressure Iran. Iran, it is believed, still wants to survive at the end of the day. And so if that's the calculation, this is really up to the Iranians, and to give them some face-saving way out of it is what they were hoping. But Iran is at this point thinking that everything is a bluff. And they also may think that they have enough ballistic missiles to continue terrorizing Israel. And maybe they've calculated the number of Israeli interceptors. I know that Yaakov Lapin spoke recently that he thought that Israel had prepared for the number of interceptors that it needed, certainly Arrow 3s. But I think there's a lot of people in the world that are worrying that there really is a finite amount of them. And eventually, when they send 100 ballistic missiles, only where 10 or 5 get through, maybe down the road they send 100 and maybe 30 get through. They may, the Iranians are very smart, and they learned a lot from the April and October attacks, which seemed to be big failures, but they learned how to strategize, and they seem to be getting more missiles in. And again, if interceptors go down, they may think they could wait this out. And the other part here is, who is really running the show there? Is it the Supreme Leader, or is it the IRGC and their influence? When that aging Supreme Leader, who's now has a succession plan, passes on, whether naturally or not, it is the IRGC, which is going to maybe put in a puppet Supreme Leader, and it may be even more dangerous.
Very interesting and concerning developments at play here. Eric Mendel, thank you for joining us and discussing your thoughts on what the United States could be doing right now.
My pleasure.
Coming back here, still with me in studio, our I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Osran. Ariel, we just discussed with Eric the possibility for some sort of diplomacy, and I want to talk about some of those efforts from Iran right now. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with some of his other counterparts in the region recently. What is the significance of this meeting between the foreign ministers? Is this the main talking point?
Right. So these meetings between Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and his Saudi counterpart Faisal bin Farhan and his Qatari counterpart Abdallah Thani took place at the sidelines of the Islamic Organization Committee that was having a summit of foreign ministers in Istanbul. Not too many readouts from those meetings as they were on the sidelines, but ultimately trying to update them and perhaps even garner support in light of this escalation. But I think the more interesting meeting was with Erdogan of Turkey, the Turkish president, who did tell Arakci that resuming nuclear talks with the U.S. is the only way to achieve a solution. Now, this would appear to be more aligned with the Israeli-American position that is pressuring Iran to return to the negotiating table as this conflict continues. He did not say once the bombing of the strikes on Iran are over, only then should they return to the table of talks, but now that is the only solution. So I find that interesting when ultimately, look, I think in Israel there may be a sense, because most of the conflicts that Israel has been engaged in recent years has been with small or medium-sized terror organizations, that the sense is once that the conflict is over when you've defeated the terror group. But this is a conventional war against a massive regional powerhouse in the form of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is not going to end with the end of Iran. And this is, I think for Israelis, it is unclear how exactly this end point will look like. And what we're seeing from Iran, they don't feel an existential threat. And I think on the part of Israel, Israelis may be feeling, due to the military successes, that is something that is on the table. But ultimately, Iran is showing a lot of cool, at least on the diplomatic arena, trying to garner support, gauge who is on their side, who isn't. But ultimately, they do not appear like they're running out of options, as we see that they're continuously refusing to return to the negotiating table, as Israel continues to severely degrade its long-distance missile capabilities.
All right, Ariel, thank you for that update as far as Iran's diplomatic efforts. Let's get an update now as to how Israeli residents are faring here in the country 9 days into this conflict. Our correspondent Joe Brown is live in Tel Aviv at the Allenby light rail station, which goes from a mode of transportation by day to a shelter for residents without a safe place at night. Joe, we're 9 days in. How are some of these Israelis faring and possibly preparing to spend another night there in the light rail station?
Well, for many Israelis, this light rail station and similar just like this across the centre of the country have become like a new home, because a lot of Israelis don't have access to either a mamad, which is a private shelter within the house, or a miklat, which is a public shelter. In fact, around about 57% of Israelis do not have any kind of mamad in their building, which means that they have to come here in order to get shelter. This is 2 stories down. You have to go down a couple of elevators to get here. And usually at this time of day, right now, it would actually be fairly quiet because this is Shabbat and the light rail is not open at this point. But now you're able to enter here without having to put your card on, your RAV-CAV on, and you're able to just go down and stay protected. But this disparity in the public shelters has reared its head within the last week and a little bit. As I say, there's only around about 57% who have a public shelter in their house, but a quarter of the country don't have any access to any shelters at all, any miklats, anything within a walking distance. When you hear the first sirens, you're supposed to get about 10 minutes before the next siren, but often it's only around about 4 minutes, and that's not enough time for a lot of people. And this disparity has shown in more Palestinian and Arab villages in Israel where the buildings are a lot older and they don't have the infrastructure. So Israel has agreed to put in 100 million shekels, which is around about $25 to $30 million into building around about 1,000 new shelters and to renovate the decrepit older ones, which people have started to spend a lot of time in. But for now, the Israeli people have shown their resilience. It's become a group spirit. I live fairly close to one of the sites of a major hit in Tel Aviv, and one thing that I saw was people who were helping those whose houses had been destroyed, trying to help them salvage their remaining possessions, giving them shelter in their own homes. It's really brought out the best in Israel, this kind of thing. When times are hard, people come together. We saw this after October the 7th, and we're seeing this now. And following October the 7th, we had, I'd say, a couple months of a grace period of people enjoying this sort of togetherness. And hopefully, as long as this is continuing, which according to the IDF Chief of Staff, this could last for a couple of months. So hopefully, as long as Israel is under attack the way it is right now, the people will remain united and the people will try and become innovative with their methods of staying safe. And if that means, as a last resort, having to sleep on the floor in this well-lit light rail station, then that's what the people will have to do.
We could be preparing for another night of that. Our I-24 News correspondent Joe Brown live in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for that update. Now, as Joe just explained a little bit, for residents in South Tel Aviv with no shelter, some of them have had to turn to unique options for a safe place, including a nuclear shelter inside the Tel Aviv Central bus station. But it is in desperate need of a makeover. And that's what some people have been doing now, repainting and beautifying the shelter so that it's ready for the worst case scenario. Let's take a listen to some of those residents.
We are in the only place in Israel that has a shelter against a bomb, atomic bombs. It's in a very terrible place, by the way. It's a central bus station in South Tel Aviv that has the most difficult air pollution and, terrible place, not clean. And it was closed for everybody. Surrounding this place, living citizens and people, families, Israelis or non-Israelis, migrant workers, asylum seekers, etc. And they did not have any place to go. Today we started to clean because the place was so dirty. We started to clean to make the place beautiful, to color it, in case that people will need to stay here at night. Then they can stay here because otherwise, it's very, very difficult to stay here.
I want to come back here in studio now to Ariel Osran. Ariel, we were talking about the stated war goals right now in Israel, and one of them that is not a stated war goal, as you mentioned, is overthrowing the Islamic Republic. However, Supreme Leader Khamenei still knows that there is a target on his back, and he's preparing for the possibility of his elimination. We're hearing different reports about him trying to speed up the timeline of his replacement in case he is eliminated. What details do you have as far as the replacement process?
Yeah, look, we've due to his age, 86, we have reported here in I-24 News amply on this rigorous process, different Supreme Council that needs to deliberate and meet and siphon out different candidates. That is not the case right now. Khamenei, hiding in a bunker, knows that he's a potential target, if not for Israeli, but also potential American target. So he has named 3 clerics to be successors for him that the Supreme Council should elect one out of those 3. Now, surprisingly, his son Mujtaba, who has been believed to be primed as one of his natural successors, along with the former President Ibrahim Raisi, who was killed in a tragic helicopter crash last year. He is not on that short list of 3 candidates, but we see here Khamenei, according to reporting in the New York Times, speaking to Iranian officials who are aware of, who have knowledge of Khamenei's wartime emergency planning. He does not want the Islamic Revolution to end with his demise, trying to put in various candidates to fill in his shoes. But not only that, also naming successors or replacements to a long array of other high-ranking positions in the Iranian leadership, cognizant of the fact that they could all be targeted and or eliminated.
All right, Ariel, thank you for that update. Let's find out more about how some Iranians are perceiving this now. We're joined now by an Iran expert, Navid Mohebi, former political prisoner inside Iran. Navid, thank you so much for being with us on I-24 News today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We just discussed Khamenei is preparing for the worst and trying to make sure that even if he goes out, the regime still stands alive. And how are some of the locals inside Iran then perceiving this? Are they hopeful? Are they fearful? Is the possibility of a regime change even just so far out of the picture that this is not something that they can truly think about right now?
I think we have to be cautious about some of these reports that are coming out. I still think that Khamenei is eyeing on his son Mojtaba. The reason is that after Khamenei was elected, Khomeini's son was assassinated and he was killed by his successor. So I think that Mojtaba and his family, they are going to be concerned about their life if somebody other than himself will be the next leader. I think that the way that Iranian people are looking at this war is that they say we cannot undo the war, but we can shape what comes after. Of course, I feel for any innocent people caught in this war, every life matters, but so far Israel has mostly targeted regime officials. I was talking to somebody inside Iran. They told us, don't worry about us. Israel is not going to target civilians, but you should be worried about Iranian regime agents overseas targeting dissidents. As we have seen in the news, some dissidents were targeted in London. I think the biggest fear that Iranian people have right now is that what if the regime survive at the conclusion of the war? I think that's the scariest scenario because the regime has been, the regime military side has been decimated and they feel humiliated and they're going to unleash their anger on Iranian people. You can just only imagine when they are threatening Rafael Garoussi, one of the top officials of the regime, threaten him. Just imagine what's going to happen to so many innocent Iranians or the so-called Israeli collaborators that the regime is reporting on. I was watching the state TV just a couple of hours ago. They were showing people that were arrested, and the head of judiciary was saying that we are going to need to have swift justice for people that have been arrested. And I think that for Israeli interest, bombing the nuclear sites alone won't solve the problem. It might slow things down, but Iran already has the knowledge. They can rebuild it in a couple of years, plus they have hidden some of their enriched uranium. But I think the thing that Israeli government should do right now is to target top leadership of the regime and also operation centers all around Tehran so that our people will have a chance to come to the street and finish the job. I think it's in the interest of Israeli government to continue strikes against Iranian regime officials, especially political leaders. So far, we haven't seen any political leaders eliminated, but I think that doing so would pave the way for regime change and collapse of the regime by the Iranian people.
This is not one of the stated war goals right now. Israel's not stating that they want to see a regime change inside Iran. And so if there is hope for a regime change without any foreign military intervention, and should there even be any foreign military intervention when it comes to a regime change, or does this have to come from the people of Iran themselves, some sort of an internal uprising?
I think that the Israeli government is managing expectations. Of course, you can anticipate whether this is going to happen, but as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, this could easily be the outcome. I believe that we don't need troops on the ground. If you target top regime officials, Khamenei, Mojtaba, his son, and the president, and we have like more than 1,700 Basiji bases all around Tehran. If you target, I think the power dynamic is going to shift towards Iranian people, and they're going to rush to the street the same way that For the past 7 years, we have seen 6 massive uprisings, 2,500 people were killed. And I think that right now, yes, people are in shock, they are in a survival mode. But if they see that the top leaders are targeted, I think we won't need to have military troops. On the ground.
Naveed, what would happen after that? Let's say there is the collapse of the Iranian regime. The Iranian diaspora is pretty divided, it seems, as to who they would actually want to see fill that role. Can the diaspora, can the Iranians rally behind one name to actually succeed the Iranian regime, or what would happen next?
Well, just like so many other societies, for example, Israeli societies, there are so many different opinions. But at the end of the day, I think the person who has the upper hand, or the group that has the upper hand or the most popularity, I think is expected to lead Iran. And I think that in this case, that person is Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He has enormous popular support inside the country. People have been calling his name at their own risk over the past 8 years. Also, he's extremely popular in Iranian diaspora, and also trusted by the Israeli government and US government and Western governments, as they have worked with the government of his father. And he has a plan for transition. Just a month ago, he has unveiled a plan for rebuilding Iran. He's already working with top-level Silicon Valley investors and many experts who have worked for the US government and for top companies in the United States and Western societies. And I think that he's prepared to lead this transition, as he has been preparing for that for a very long time.
All right, Iran expert Naveed Mohebi, thank you so much for giving us your analysis on what's happening inside Iran and what the Iranian people might want to see the outcome of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to come back here in studio quickly to Ariel Osran. We just heard some interesting thoughts, but still, so far, it seems this is not the stated goal from Israel. Even if we see something like this from inside Iran, some sort of an internal uprising, we've been discussing this in studio. Even if this is what the Iranian people want, it's still pretty far off on the horizon.
It is pretty far off. We're not seeing any indications right now of mass protests preparing, or in fact, on the contrary, we're seeing an intense crackdown, as we just heard, with the Iranian judiciary even expediting the due process, if you can even call it that, the Islamic Revolution's version of due process with regards to cracking down on these voices of dissent. Ultimately, Iran is showing that it is not going to tolerate these strikes evolving into a local uprising, with, in fact, on the ground, we are not seeing any such indications.
All right, Ariel Osran, thank you for that update. We are going out for a quick break here on I-24 News, but when we come back, we're going to continue to discuss Israel's latest military actions inside Iran at this moment, and how both Israelis and Iranians are reacting to 9 days of this conflict so far. All this and more when we come back. 3-minute break, and we're right back here on I-24 News. Stay with us.
You live in Israel or you are preparing for your Aliyah? Congratulations. You have a smartphone? Perfect. Download the Olim app for free and discover everything we have to offer. Booking medical and administrative appointments, bills paying, debt verification, instant translation, contractor recommendation, request tracking, and much more. And if you can't manage it on your own, our team speaks your language and assists you with all your procedures in Israel, starting from 199 shekels per month, unlimited and for the whole family. Don't hesitate any longer. Download the app or contact us.
bad posture. The ever-increasing hours we spend sitting, working, and even while trying to relax at home is twisting our vertebrae out of alignment and creating strain and pain on muscles, ligaments, and joints. A scientifically designed spine and back support device that uses precision biometric technology to perfectly align the back and spine for all-day comfort and support, creating perfect posture for your back every time you sit down. Now features extra-wide acupressure comfort pads as well as an extended height back panel for even more support, making it perfect for all body types. Also features a precision wing design that perfectly cradles your back and spine with amazing ergonomic support that leaves you feeling refreshed and energized even after sitting all day.
Introducing the brand new i24 News Video On Demand app. You'll have instant access to all our programs, reports, in-depth discussions and expert commentary, all at your fingertips, whenever you want it. So what are you waiting for? Download the i24 News Video On Demand app today.
Welcome back to this special edition of I-24 News. It is day 9 of Operation Rising Lion. Israel is at war with Iran. And overnight, we saw the most recent barrage of ballistic missiles fired towards Israel, as well as a large swarm of drones. One of those drones, for the first time since this operation started, did manage to hit a home in northern Israel. I want an update on that now from our I-24 News correspondent, Balig Sladin. He joins us live from the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. Balig, we saw another night of attacks overnight. However, a relatively quiet day since then. What can you share about the details that we've seen over the past 24 hours, really?
Yes, exactly. Relatively a quiet day since this morning, actually, since 3 a.m. The barrage that was fired from Iran. We're talking about 5 missiles from Iran that all of them were intercepted according to the IDF. None of them fell in Israel. And, of course, that did not cause any casualties, only damage for one of the roofs of the residential buildings in the city of Holon, south of Tel Aviv. A fire was erupted there, and then the firefighting authorities in Israel quickly did manage to distinguish it. So we see that this specific barrage of missiles did not cause any harm in Israel, but drones throughout the day and also the past 24 hours were fired from Iran to Haifa, even through Lebanon, and even to Eilat, where sirens also went off just this morning. And one drone, as you've said, did fell in a residential home in the area of Beit Shan, that is in the north of Israel, and because the family there were inside their shelter, they did not been harmed as a result of this drone attack, but the damage was caused, of course, to their house, but thankfully none of them were injured as a result of it. So we see that Iran is still trying to infiltrate infiltrate Israeli airspace through these drones that haven't been very successful. Throughout the day, we've heard from the IDF that almost 99% of these drones were intercepted, and that's after firing more than 1,000 of them actually toward Israel. Many are actually or have been intercepted even before they enter Israeli airspace. So this has been a quiet day, as we've said, but of course no one guarantees what's coming throughout the coming hours and throughout the night. Of course, we usually see that Iran do choose to fire actually after midnight, and of course that's something that is very disturbing for the Israelis that have been gone for days now with very little sleep, of course, but many of them are with very high morals, and they still follow the instructions, go to the nearest shelter, and of course they think, at least as we hear it, that this is a necessary. The war that we see that Israel has waged on Iran is something that it has to be done, and as a result of that, of course, the price has to be paid here in Israel, but that's a price apparently, for now at least, we see that the Israelis are more than willing to pay, because they think that in the future, of course, if Iran obtains a nuclear weapon or they manage to manufacture tens of thousands of these ballistic missiles that they fire toward Israel, that would be much more problematic, if not even saying, of course, an existential threat to the state of Israel.
All right, Malik Sladin with that update live outside of the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. Thank you for your coverage on the ground. I want to come back here in studio to our I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent Ariel Osrian. Ariel, we have an update now from the IDF as far as their continued strikes inside Iran. What are they saying at this hour?
Right. So when we started the broadcast, we said that Israeli fighter jets were currently engaged in a series of airstrikes in southwestern Iran, mainly the Khuzestan province, Ahavaz, the main city there. So now the IDF saying that it completed this series of airstrikes that included approximately 30 Israeli fighter jets targeting dozens of military sites in that area, including a site containing missile launchers, as well as, this is just a statement that we received in the past few minutes. Some of the sites had launched missiles in the past few days at the state of Israel, also radar detection sites, and as well as other military infrastructure belonging to the Iranian regime. And what we're seeing we can say now 9 days of ongoing strikes, or 8 days of ongoing strikes against Iran, that Israel is targeting its launch capabilities and Western Iran, trying to push it eastward away from Israel's borders, making it more challenging for Iran to reach Israel. Obviously, we know that for years, Iran has established these different capabilities, launch capabilities, pointed at Israel, at civilian population centers, as we just heard in Balil's report. Ultimately, the more Israel continues to degrade Iran's launch capabilities in Western Iran, the more challenging it will be for them to carry out these ongoing attacks, because that is for them the main launch pad. And according to Israeli military officials, the assessment is that roughly 50 to 60% of Iran's ballistic missile launchers have been destroyed. Now, that is very significant, because each launcher is supposed to launch hundreds of missiles. And so Israel obviously is also going after the missile stockpiles. But you really see in videos coming out of the IDF how you have these jets up in the air hunting down these launchers, targeting them along with the Iranian military personnel that are performing the different tasks around these launchers. So really, this is an ongoing effort. You can say continuously since last Friday, Israeli fighter jets have been hunting down Iranian ballistic missile launchers, and this is continuing to this very moment.
And making some of that significant damage, diminishing their launch capabilities. Ariel with the update. Thank you. I want to bring it to the conversation now as well. Retired Colonel Mary Eisen, senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University. Mary, great to have you with us as always. We were just hearing the update as far as how Israel is diminishing Iran's missile capabilities and how we're feeling that here in Israel as well. We're seeing smaller and smaller barrages being fired from Iran, but there are also some fears that as we diminish more of these missile launchers, decreasing the number of missiles that Iran can fire, Iran will then start using some larger, more complex missiles like the cluster bomb that we saw in Haifa yesterday. Can these two things be correlated?
They are correlated, but at the end, we still do need to breathe in deep. I find it interesting that in the background to Ariel, you could see destruction in Tel Aviv, and then you could see what Israel is doing. It's really hard to compare right now the two. Iran has tried to launch against Israel in the last 9 days. The biggest barrage they did was 50. Nicole, let's put things into proportion. I, at least, before this started, would have told you that they would send a barrage of 200 or even of 300 missiles at once. And look, all they've managed to do is 50, go down to 40, go down to 30. And yes, perhaps they'll be able to go back up, but we are destroying those launchers. But I need to add into it, we're not only attacking launchers. That's the portion both to protect us against what Iran is firing against us. We're also attacking the drone sites. But let's be clear, today, in the last 24, 48 hours, Israel is also continuously attacking the nuclear facilities, the nuclear sites. We've really put out there 5 different types of targets that we are consistently attacking. And that term that I never thought I'd be saying, air superiority over Iran, means that not only are we hunting, as Ariel said, the launchers, we're also hunting to a large degree anything that is anti-aircraft. We want to make sure we keep that air superiority, but we are targeting in a very sophisticated way both the Revolutionary Guard, the nuclear sites, the hierarchy decision makers within the different terror apparatus, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the nuclear apparatus, the air and space, as they call that. We're continuously doing that. And in the last 24 hours, again, we've been hitting very center people and hitting very center sites.
And with these nuclear sites, we're 9 days in, Mary, and the big question still remains is whether or not the United States will get involved and strike those nuclear facilities that Israel might not be able to fully strike without some major consequences by themselves. But is Israel ready for the possibility that the United States will not get involved? Do they have other means to take out, for example, Fordow without these bunker busters from the United States?
What we've been doing over the last 9 days is we've been attacking some of these different nuclear sites time and time again. That's what you do when you don't have a type of munition that can go the whole way in. Even think about it of erosion, even inside, your house or whatever you're doing. If you hit something and you hit it again and you hit it again, it does some erosion. It is something that will, in time, also be able to take care. I think that Israel's the military strategic plan of attacking all of these very, as I said, 5 different categories, but diverse targets. We're not going back to all of them all the time, but we're going back to the nuclear ones time and again, making sure that we both hit, that we're destroying, that we're demolishing those capabilities. I do think we have that capability. Nicole, what we all understand is that if we do it like that, it can take a lot longer. And at the end, it's about the both effectiveness, not just the efficiency. Here we are sitting in our safe rooms talking a lot about the incoming, what does get through, because most of what Iran is firing and sending against us does not get through. And so we do need to have a timetable on how long we in the home front can keep going ourselves this way.
And what is that timetable, Mary? How long is Israel prepared for this? Because the chief of command says that this could be a long war with Iran.
Chief of Staff is the one who knows better than anybody else in that sense the capabilities of Israel and what the game plan is militarily. Militarily, we can continue like this. Certainly, I'm even going to say weeks. But I didn't bring Nicole with me into, I'm also a wandering Jew between places that have safe rooms because I don't have one in my house. Wow. I didn't bring my crystal ball, and I don't mean to be silly about it. I think it's a really important question for all of us. I think that we really want to let the Israeli Defense Forces, let the Israeli Air Force continue doing its systematic attacking and targeting of the 5 different types of groups of targets. One of those groups is to try as much as possible to diminish what's coming into Israel, the missiles and the drones. The other 4 groups in attacking the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, in keeping down the air defense, in attacking the nuclear sites themselves, but also in attacking the facilities where they make the missiles and the drones, those same missiles and drones that they have exported both to Hezbollah and to the Houthis that have been used against us so extensively. So my crystal ball says, give it a week or 2. If the United States steps in, it changes all of the equation. That's something different. That's coordination. The Iranians have tried so many times to threaten the United States from stepping in that I think that they would have the Iranians would have an automatic reaction to fire against U.S. Targets, and that immediately would change everything, the dynamics of what's going on right now.
And over the next several weeks then, during this possibly prolonged war, Mary, how can Israel continue to keep this Western support, even if the United States does not get military involved? We have seen these 5 key assets that Israel continues to target, as you mentioned, but is this a way to continue to maintain this Western support as the IDF maintains air superiority over the skies of Iran?
I think that what we've done in Iran shows very clearly when you're targeting, this is a country, it's 86 million people. It has a very strong military industry. It has a very strong capability, both of industry, of high tech, they're very educated. And I say that because we're being very specific in our targets. And I think that in that sense, as long as we continue with the very clear cut Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the air and space, these different type of targets, the world is not against us. The fact that the world is afraid from the Islamic regime's threats, Nicole, that's something we could talk about from here to eternity. I do a lot of talking on the international media, and I don't attack them, but I'm sharing with our viewers that I find it very frustrating that what everybody is worried about is, oh no, they'll be attacked. As long as it's only Israel, it's okay. And excuse my sarcasm in the air, because part of that, in that sense, is what will the world do? There is an aspect also that we need to be aware of, which is economic at the end. That pathway that is right next to Iran, and Iran is also part of it, is the main export for oil, for gas, for the world, that whole aspect there. And when that starts to get really disrupted, the world will step in. When the oil prices really jump, and they're already jumping, it's going to affect Japan and China and Germany and all these different countries. So we can't ignore the world. And what we're doing now, it's not that it's a service to the world, it's going against the worst type of regime that was building these capabilities. As long as they let us do it, let us keep on doing it.
Retired Colonel Mary Eisen with insightful analysis, as always. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Nicole.
Now, the IDF had a major elimination inside of Iran. The man responsible for funding and arming the Hamas terror group ahead of the October 7th massacre. Saeed Izzadi was the head of the Palestine Corps in the IRGC's Quds Force. The IDF says Izzadi was one of the few people who knew about Hamas's plans for October 7th. It says he was killed overnight in a safe house in the city of Qom thanks to a prolonged intelligence effort. Here's more from IDF spokesman Brigadier General Avi Defrin on Izzadi's elimination.
During the night, Israeli Air Force fighter jets, guided precisely by the Intelligence Directorate, eliminated Saeed Izzadi, the commander of the Palestine Corps in Iran's Quds Force. We killed him while he was hiding in a safe house in Qom, deep in the heart of Iran. In his role, he was responsible for military coordination between the Iranian regime and Hamas in Lebanon and Gaza.
For more, we're joined now by Samer Sinijlawi, Fatah activist and chairman of the Jerusalem Development Fund. Samer, thank you for being with us this evening on I-24 News.
Thank you for inviting me. Good afternoon.
Now, from your perspective, the elimination of a man like Saeed Izzadi, does this truly weaken Iran's grip on groups like Hamas, Hezbollah? I want to talk about just the significance of a strike and an elimination like this inside of Iran.
Well, I don't want to underestimate the huge intelligence achievement that Israel has demonstrated in the whole operation 10 days ago when the attack at Iran. started. It is a massive achievement. Nobody can say anything about it. But I doubt that this can really have a direct impact on the development of things in Gaza now. Now, Hamas is not depending on whether Iran will support them financially or not. I think the future, the existence of Hamas, the continuation or the ending of the Hamas regime in Gaza depends now more on a political horizon that can be put on the table. I think the only way to defeat Hamas now is that the Palestinians defeat them in general elections. We need to defeat Hamas in the election boxes. This is the only way that we can exit them from our political life. There is no way that now, even if Iran wants to, gift Hamas more millions to continue whatever they are trying to do, there is no way that these millions can reach to Hamas now. The only way to get this regime end is by opening political horizons, allowing Palestinians themselves to defeat Hamas. Sometimes I get a lot a question of, do Palestinians need a Mandela? I always answer by saying Palestinians need a Ben Gurion that will take the Altalena option into forcing a one state, one law, one arm, into not allowing any individual or organization or militia to dictate, to kidnap the Palestinian people into a suicide attack, like a collective suicide attack, like the 7th of October. So the steps now are the ball is in the courts of the Palestinians. And I want to mention something. You know that I am an opponent to President Abbas, but I was really very optimistic when I have read the letter that he has drafted and delivered to President Macron and to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, where he committed that within 1 year there will be a Palestinian election, and he committed that he will issue a new party law for Palestinians where it will be prohibited for any party to be established if they don't believe in the framework of Oslo negotiations as the only result for Palestinians to discuss their future. And the new party law will not allow any participating party in the elections to have any kind of resort to violence or possessing arms. So Palestinians need Ben Gurion, they need the Altalena option, and this is the only way that we can deal with the situation in Gaza and we end Hamas. I'm not very much confident that what's happening in Iran now will help things in Gaza.
However, you mentioned this is for the Palestinian people then to stand up against Hamas and other radical elements inside Gaza. But does the weakening of the Iranian axis of resistance, does it then allow some more space for these moderate Palestinian voices to actually step up? The fact that these radical elements like Hamas have lost their lifeline, that being Iran.
Well, I think the Iranian axis or the resistance axis has been proven to be a fantasy. It did not exist at all. We have seen that Iran left Hezbollah and Hamas alone. And we have seen that at the right time, even Hezbollah left Hamas alone. So this axis did not exist. It was a myth. Okay, maybe only Hamas believed in it, not all the others. What worries me more is the Persian crescent. The Persian ideology and culture is spreading from Iran to Iraq, to Syria, to Lebanon. There are millions of Shia who believe in the Iranian ideology that are present inside Lebanon, inside Syria, inside Iraq. Sometimes they try to reach to Jordan. Sometimes they try to reach to the Palestinian areas. So it worries me more about the myth of the resistance axis. It did not exist. It did not exist at the beginning. But yes, of course, when Iran, the main sponsor of this axis, weakens and it gets more focusing on its internal issues than the external issues, of course, this will accumulate to issuing the death certificate of the resistance axis.
So as a whole then, Samer, how would you say that Palestinians, even inside the West Bank, have been viewing these 9-day conflicts so far between Israel and Iran?
Well, generally speaking, I can tell you that in the Arab world, they don't feel that this is their war. Yes, the Arab moderate states are taking part on the defensive part. Yes, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, Jordan, Egypt, all these countries are part of the defensive regional strategy against the missiles and the attacks of the Iranians, but they are not part of the offensive part. You know, this is even the United States and the West is not part of it until now. So everybody is just, watching, and there is a lot of worry because the escalation can be dramatic. If something goes wrong and suddenly, the fuel price gets to $400 a barrel, and then there will be more violence spreading, things can lose control. We are not certain now that the Americans will intervene and take part. It was clear the message from President Trump, he's still considering. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and most of the Arab people, including the Palestinians, are watching and worried.
All right, Samir Sinijlawi, Fatah activist, joining us with your analysis on what's happening right now between Israel and Iran and how it could impact the Palestinian people as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to come back here in studio to our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran. Ariel, there had been some fear also, even when this operation first started, that there could be other uprising, perhaps, whether that be in Gaza, in the West Bank, on Israel's borders as well. But that's not necessarily what we've seen over the past 9 days. As Iran is growing weaker and Israel is diminishing its capabilities, are we seeing this lifeline then from Hamas, from Hezbollah, truly weakening, and now these proxies are kind of on their own to make their own decisions?
Yeah, ultimately, Hezbollah's missile and rocket stockpile of over 100,000 different ornaments that could be fired, projectiles that could be launched at Israel, that was Iran's insurance policy. And when Israel went after Hezbollah, killing Nasrallah, now his bodyguard, as well as taking out 70 to 80% of their rocket and missile capabilities, that removed them as an insurance policy. And that opened up Iran for Israel to go after the various threats that originate from there. And ultimately now, not only are these proxies alone kind of a divide and conquer strategy, but Iran is alone without having them to protect it. So we really see that in this 19-month war that began with Iran's strategy of trying to put a ring of fire over around Israel, that appears to have been pretty much put out. And the flip side, it's kind of its own ring of fire now closing in on Iran, because you have Israel striking it, you have the United States closing in from multiple areas, you have some voices in the EU supporting what Israel is doing, saying that Israel is doing the dirty work of the entire world, as Chancellor Merz of Germany said. And we are seeing what I can view, and also the Iranians are viewing, as a very muted response by the IAEA, the UN's nuclear watchdog. After years of non-compliance on the part of the Iranians, now they are begging the IAEA to take a more forceful stance. The IAEA is not doing that. In fact, in a statement from today acknowledging the strike on the Isfahan nuclear site, Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the UN's nuclear watchdog, saying, well, there was no nuclear material at the site, so there's no danger of any leakage of dangerous materials, so there's no point for us to get involved. They're watching all these strikes happen, and Iran is very angry at this, as we heard earlier in the broadcast. One of the Supreme Leader's highest key advisors threatened Grossi directly. So there's a lot of frustration from Iran with regards to the international community's response.
We're going to talk more about what people inside Iran are saying once again, especially over some of these communication blackouts that we're seeing inside Iran. Ariel, stay with us here in studio. We're going out for another quick break here on I-24 News, but stay with us.
Copper, heat therapy, cold therapy, Theralite warm-up, microcurrent tech, extension handle. This is the ProSage Thermo Copper, the latest percussion massage gun tech advancement available from Evertone. The ProSage Thermo Copper is the only 6-in-1 percussion massage gun with warm-up technology, hot and cold therapy, microcurrent, and now are you ready for this? The benefits of copper. Get deep muscle warm-up technology and a professional athlete-level massage for full body recovery and relief. Back in 2018, Evertone's invention of the ProSage created the craze in the market for advanced professional-level percussion massage. Featured on The Talk, Entertainment Tonight, CNN, and others, the ProSage Thermo Copper 6-in-1 is a powerful percussion massager with our patented Theralite warm-up technology, advanced copper head therapy with unique copper benefits, our proprietary heat therapy head for deep muscle penetration, and the cold therapy head for soreness and inflammation. Microcurrent tech for pain recovery and restoration, and it even comes with our newest extension handle, so you can reach anywhere on your body. This makes the cordless ProSage Thermo Copper 6-in-1 with 5 unique massage heads the most advanced professional-level massage gun available. The gold standard in massage guns is now the ProSage Thermo Copper with targeted pain relief.
Welcome back to this special edition of I-24 News. Now, as Israel continues to strike deep inside Iran, targeting senior IRGC leaders, nuclear scientists, and missile launch sites, there are growing fears inside Iran, and many people are fleeing the capital, unsure if and when this conflict is going to end. For an update on what's happening inside Iran, we're joined now by Mazyar Mokfi, a journalist and political analyst at Iran International. We're 9 days in right now. What is the main sentiment inside Iran? And I want to bring in also outside as well. As far as the Iranian diaspora, how is everyone continuing to react 9 days into this conflict?
Well, thank you for having me. The main point is at the moment is I am as Israel army forces has got the upper hand in the confrontation, and they managed to bombard all military bases. They killed almost all highest rank of Iranian commanders, and even the Israeli intelligence forces are present in Iran. So we can see that the damage is quite high at the moment, and Israel and the war is in the favor of Israel. So, but in the second part of the question, the Iranian diaspora outside of Iran, as a true patriots, they are worried about the war. Most of them, I can promise you, that most of them are against the regime. But at the same time, we are seeing that all infrastructure in Iran is badly bombarded by Israel. And even military bases. These military bases belong to the country, they belong to the nation. And in such a chaotic region like the Middle East, we need to have each country, especially Iran as a regional power, needs to be strong enough. At the moment, we see that the very situation is very chaotic, and it makes almost all Iranian diaspora very worried.
Mazyar, is there any sort of growing internal paranoia as well? We continue to see a growing number of people that are being arrested inside Iran and accused of spying for Israel. Now, it is common knowledge that Israel has a pretty large spy network inside Iran. That's how they were able to launch such a successful surprise operation in the first place, by recruiting Iranians. But is there now more fear from within Iran to actually help Israel and coordinate with the Mossad?
Well, at the moment, the whole system is collapsing, and the government is in a paranoia. They try to find the excuse, try to get some people, and try to show their strength, not only to Israelis, but also to the Iranian people, who I can promise you, the majority of Iranian people are against the system. So we can see a kind of paranoia within the government, and they are thinking about this system is not going to work. And they are even thinking about sideline the supreme leader and coming to dialogue with the Western countries. We see some indication and we see some hints by Iranians. Right now, we can say within Iran, there are some groups that are not very happy what the supreme leader done so far. A couple of months ago, he came to the speech, in public speech, and said, no war and no negotiation. And I will promise you, everything's going to be okay. And now we can see there is a war and there is a negotiation, and the country is in such a level. So this chaotic situation, first of all, scared more the people inside the regime as well as people outside and in the Iranian public opinion about it.
And we are seeing more of that fear inside the regime. Even reports that Khamenei is preparing for the possibility of his elimination, his assassination. As far as this, when you talk about this internal uprising, perhaps, from the Iranian people that are not happy with the Iranian regime, who could actually take over the role then of the supreme leader? If the regime collapses, who could actually control the country?
That's a £6 million question, and that I like to answer it. The reason that the U.S. hasn't eliminated the Khamenei, or Israel, they haven't killed the Khamenei, is not very difficult for them. The most important and concern for the Western countries, especially United States, it's what's going to happen the day after the Islamic Republic. There's such a big country like Iran, as all analysts consider it as a regional power. If the supreme leader be eliminated, there is a vacuum of power suddenly happen in the country, and there is a risk of the threat to integrity and the collapsing of the whole country. As you may know, that Iran is a vast country with different ethnic groups, which can be interested for some our neighbors, to encourage them to start to be raising their voice, and they try to make some kind of chaos. That's why I think the most important reason so far, the Western country, or especially America, as the most influential power in the region, hasn't decided to eliminate the supreme leader, is that they don't want to be faced in some kind of chaos. Therefore, they have two choices. One, they have people outside of Iran, opposition outside of Iran, and another thing is some people, some voices, even some people within the government who right now came to this conclusion that this system is not going to work, this supreme leader is not sufficient anymore and needs to be the sideline and go to dialogue with the West. These are the options for the Western countries, especially United States. Let's start with the opposition outside of Iran. Opposition outside of Iran, they are not very well organized. You don't see a kind of leadership. You don't see a kind of hegemonic discourse to poses by one of these leaders and be spread in the whole country, from the leftists to the rights, and become as a leadership. Yes, we can see some kind of celebrities over there, but we don't see a proper and official leader, political leader in Iran. political leader is being, as we're looking around the world, is created through the process of a movement. When we look at the 46 years of this opposition outside of Iran, you don't see much activity from them. Let's say some of them, like, for example, Reza Pahlavi, who's a son of the Shah and who somehow is popular in some people, inside of Iran, although we don't have a data to say exactly is it the upper hand or no. I truly believe that there is nobody's upper hand. They are all in the same level. Let's talk about that kind of a leader who believe they are a leader. They don't even have a website to see what are they doing, what is their activity. May some people wants to join them. May some people wants to donate, support them. You don't see such an organization. You don't see such an organic link between the different groups inside of Iran with the outside. So another reason which is proved, and I think for me is clear, and for most of the analysts who following the Iranian case closely, none of the officials in the Western country meet them, except the Prime Minister Netanyahu. So in this situation, the Western country do not looking at outside of Iran. They don't want to have a bitter experience which they had after Saddam Hussein or after Taliban, collapse of the Taliban. They made a very costly pain for the US especially. So they don't want to repeat that. What they want, I think they want, America generally wants to change the DNA of Islamic Republic with the minimize the cost. Why? Because simply changing the regime can be so costly. At the same time, if the DNA is still alive, the Iranian regime, they have the knowledge to produce and to follow their nuclear power. If you bombard them now, next 5 years, next 10 years, the story come back again. That's why the US is waiting to change an opportunity to change the DNA of the system. How? Some people within the Iran, within the government, who now believe, it doesn't work. We need to change. We need to go and talk to the US. We see some words from the Javad Zarif or even Hassan Rouhani, or right now even Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. They are still in touch with the US. This is one part. Another part is the critics inside the country who are not linked to the government, like, for example, Nasrin Sotoudeh. They are very well known, the Peace Prize, or some political activists, or even some artists. They are gathering to each other, and they try to make a one voice to stop the war and stop the Islamic regime. And this is exactly what US and the most of Western countries, I think they are listening so carefully.
Some big questions at play there. Mazyar Mokfi, thank you so much for giving us your analysis on what's happening inside Iran.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I want to come back here in studio to our I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran. Ariel, we're seeing some new information as far as Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar stating that there was an Iranian plot against Israelis in Cyprus. It has been foiled, according to the foreign minister, but what details do you have?
Yes, another example of the IRGC Iranian regime going after Israeli civilians. Now, according to Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, writing in a post on his X account, saying that the IRGC tried to carry out an attack on Israeli civilians in Cyprus. Now, we know that this is an area that, due to the closure of the skies or the limited ability for Israelis to return home or leave Israel, a lot of travel is going through Cyprus. And so it appears that the IRGC, the operative arm of the regime, is cognizant of this and tried to carry out attacks on it. In his post, Minister Sa'ar said that this plot was thwarted due to work together with Cypriot authorities, and saying that Israel will continue to act to remove the existential threat posed by the Iranian terror regime. So we see, in addition to strikes on civilian population centers in Israel, be it through ballistic missiles or drones, Iran continues to try and target Israeli civilians also abroad.
Which is another fear that many of these Israelis and just the Jewish diaspora has, as well as this war with Iran does continue. Ariel Osran, our I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent, with the latest updates. Thank you so much for your analysis, as always.
Thanks, Nicole.
Now, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan is condemning Israel's attacks once again, stating that the strikes on Iran were aimed at sabotaging Iran's nuclear talks with the United States. Take a listen.
Israel's attacks on Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and most recently Iran can be described as acts of banditry. The measures taken by Iran in self-defense to protect its people against Israel's state terrorism are entirely natural, legitimate, and legal. We are fully aware of what Netanyahu is trying to do. They believe they can establish their security by plunging the region into fire, conflict, chaos, and tears. He is chasing a complete illusion. Israel cannot ensure its own security by threatening the security of its neighbors.
Now, as Israel pounded Iran with repeated airstrikes on Friday, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake shook northern Iran, not far from the Fordow nuclear facility, sparking concern and rumors of the regime testing the nuclear site. However, the U.S. Geological Survey says that the quake struck a depth of 6 miles, some 23 miles southwest of the city of Semnan. Amidst the damage here in Israel, thousands of people have lost their homes from Iran's ballistic missile attacks, including former I-24 News anchor Ariel Levin-Waldman. He recently went back for the first time to see what was left of his family's miraculous survival. And our host and correspondent Natasha Kruchuk joined him. Here's more.
It's been a shock, but it's like I'm not feeling depressed or anything, because every time I look around, like, we got all of us, including the dog, for God's sakes.
This is Ariel Levin-Waldman. Just 6 days ago, his house was directly hit by a ballistic missile in central Israel.
Yo. So far along, yo.
He miraculously survived with his wife, her parents, and their 2 little girls. But nothing is left of their home. Since the attack, Ariel and his family have been living in a hotel room.
I have a shirt that doesn't fit me, pants that don't fit me. I have whatever anyone was willing to give, because I got out of that hole in my underwear and nothing else. So, yeah, it ain't the greatest right now. I need to do some shopping when the store's open again. Well, for the first time since the missile hit, I'm going to go back to the crater and see if I can find anything at all. I had a lot of family heirlooms in that house that go back 4 generations. I doubt I'm going to find any of them, but it would mean a lot to me if I could. I'd say it's not the first time I'm going to be seeing the house. I already saw it in a complete daze when I got out of that basement. I need to see it, probably for the last time. Some things you can't rebuild. It's not really just about the physical objects and the mementos. It's about everything that house represented. Because it wasn't just a house, it was a home. איפה היה מספר 7? נו. אני צריך לצלם את האוטו שלי, קודם כל. ושני, דיברתי עם פיקוד העורף, לתת לי לראות אם יש כלום שנשאר.
This is your house?
No, the hole in the middle is what used to be our house. Now that's part of the house. But yeah, let's see what's what here. Okay, no, I was definitely a little optimistic, wasn't I? My bed's intact, look at that. Oh, hey, I found my car. Look. It's my car.
Where were you guys?
Down there. Down there. We were down in the shelter because we got the alert from the Home Front Command. We were hoping that her father would come down to the stairs and join us. The blast door was still open, and that's when the missile hit. There was a flash of lights. There was a loud noise, but I more felt it than heard it at that point. And then it was all pitch black. The floor shook, and I could hear screaming. There was my mother-in-law screaming. Both of my kids were screaming. My wife was screaming. I was screaming. Saw my mother-in-law was pinned to the wall by a cabinet that got blown across the shelter. And we could see the light of day, and this is where the firefighter came and said, come this way, and took us to the surface, and we were saved. She did not survive. I was the third person that was named on the night of Evgenia. Sweet old lady, around 70. Loved to play with my kid. Poor woman. Dog was under the sofa in there.
Last night, another miracle happened. Their family dog was found alive after everyone thought he was dead. Little Tzvika was starving and shaking after 5 days of being trapped underneath the couch that saved him. He's now being treated at the vet and waiting to reunite with his family. A ray of light in all of the darkness. Like many families who have lost their homes to missiles, looters have made their way through the rubble in the chaos.
You're saying people came in and stole stuff that was down here?
Yeah, somebody apparently went into the shelter inside the basement. They risked their necks to get, let's face it, a passport and some credit cards they couldn't even get into. Someone tried to use the credit cards. My kid liked to play with this pasta pot, actually. I'm debating whether or not I should take it so she could cook something. Of all the stuff you take from a ruin, that's not the first thing I'd choose.
What was once his house is now a stop for tourists who want to see what happened. At least Ariel is able to laugh about it.
The world doesn't need to see what's left of my wife's lingerie. Hey, Tali, I found your corset. Jesus fucking Christ. I guess I didn't expect anything different, but I had hoped against all hope that maybe I could salvage something. Clearly not.
You're gonna come back here again?
I got anything to come back to? I said there's been too much sorrow in this house. They're not gonna want to come back here.
After searching for an hour for something of value with no success, we head back to the hotel.
From a pretty big house to a hotel room for the foreseeable future. This is one of our wedding photos. I see it as sort of like a metaphor for the whole event. Completely battered, but unbroken. And the family might be a little bit battered, but we're unbroken.
Amazing to see the resilience there in Ariel Levin-Waldman and his entire family. Now, tonight, residents are once again preparing for the likelihood that Iran will fire ballistic missiles toward Israel for the 9th night in a row. I want to get an update now from our I-24 News correspondent Joe Brown, once again at the Allenby Light Rail Station in Tel Aviv. Joe, residents are readying for another long night, perhaps. What are the rules as far as the Homefront Command instructions for the public? Just a reminder for the guidelines right now.
So the Homefront Command says that activities involving gatherings are prohibited. This includes workspaces unless they are essential, and educational operations as well. But one place that you are technically allowed to gather is in a public shelter, which is where I am right now. This is a light rail stop in the center of Tel Aviv, but this is now doubled up as a second home for many people who do not have a shelter. You see, most Israeli homes are separated into two categories, whether they were built before or after 1993. If they were built after 1993, then by law they have to have a shelter, whether this is a mamad, a private room, or a maklat, which is a shelter. But around about 57% of all Israelis do not have a shelter or a safe room or anything that they're able to go to if there are missiles. So that's why they have opened up this light rail station for people who, as a last resort, are having to stay here. I just spoke to a couple from Canada who said that they were living in a hotel that did not have any shelter, but the wife is now trying to convince the husband that this is safe to be down here. And it is safe. There's security guards, and also this is 2 stories down, so it's very unlikely that there will be hit by any kind of rockets. So people are now just waiting here. The Homefront Commands will not change their guidelines until Tuesday or Wednesday. So for now, everyone is on edge, waiting, anticipating the next missile strike, but also trying their best to stay safe.
That's such an interesting point there, too, Joe. You mentioned some of the residents that have been sleeping there and anticipating during this uncertain time. However, 9 days in, what's been so surprising in these public shelters is the sense of community that so many people have found as well. Is this one of the things that you're hearing and seeing? I know it's still early there, but still from the residents, what are you hearing?
Well, this is kind of a homely experience. If you have ever been to Israel, you'll probably be able to relate to the following story. But when I was speaking to the Canadian woman who I just spoke about earlier, we were talking about how there was a lack of shelters in the Arab-Israeli villages because of a lack of funding and lack of building new homes. And somebody overheard that, an American Israeli who is also here sheltering. And this was whilst the Canadian woman was on the FaceTime with her daughter. So whilst this was all going on, we're engaged in a big political argument. And it felt very much like being at a Shabbat dinner table. But talking about that, I actually saw a video from a friend of mine who is in Jerusalem right now. And when there were sirens on Friday night, this was during the Sabbath, and she went to a miklat, a public shelter, and there they were singing Shabbat songs. They were singing Shalom Aleichem, because that's what brings a community spirit at times like this, especially when people aren't in gatherings, they're not meeting their friends, they're not going to school, they're not going to work, they're having to be stuck at home quite a lot. You miss that communal feeling similar to the early days of the coronavirus. So when you're in a public shelter like this, it's a good way to bring the people together. People have got their pets here. It's not just people, it's four-legged people as well. And everyone has joined in, and it's all a big family. And this just shows the Israeli resilience and the Israeli spirit. But most importantly, they are doing this because they want to stay safe. They want to abide by the Homefront Command, which gives a warning when you need to be within 10 minutes, roughly 10 minutes for the first siren within a shelter. Then you hear the main sirens across the city, which is where you get 90 seconds. But it's very hard to get to that place if you don't have access to one. You could stay in a staircase, but these missiles from Iran, as has been discussed earlier in the show, these are considerably heavier. These give much more damage, as we have seen in these visuals from Tel Aviv and Ramat Gan and Holon and Area 11 Waldman in Rishon LeZion just before me. So people are worried about the possibility that this could happen to their home. So that's why they're having to camp out here. This feels more like a campsite than a light rail station. And this just shows the Israeli spirit, the togetherness that people have to do. Even as I'm speaking now, I see people coming down the elevators with big suitcases. They have the travel pillow with them. They're ready for what could be a long night, but hopefully a good night's sleep.
Oh, it could be a long night there. Joe Brown bringing us the voices of Tel Aviv. Thank you so much. Now, just a reminder to our viewers as we do close out this broadcast, it is Saturday, June 21st, and we are 9 days into Israel's Operation Rising Lion. Israel at war with Iran. And for the first time since the war started on June 13th, earlier in the day, an Iranian drone did manage to hit a home in northern Israel's Beit She'an. No one was injured, however, but still, this is one of the 1,000 drones that has been fired from Iran towards Israel over the course of more than a week now. Meanwhile, the big question at this hour remains whether or not the United States will get involved in this war. A quick update here. There are more reports surfacing, this time now from the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, that the United States is moving some B-2 bombers to Guam. Now, there's still no indication that the bombers have been given the orders to strike Iran amid Trump's 2-week timeline for the United States to make the decision whether or not to get involved in the war directly. This is the major question that remains at this hour, Saturday, June 21st. You can always head to i24news.tv for any of the updates on these breaking developments. For now, I'm Nicole Zedek, and that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Bad posture. The ever-increasing hours we spend sitting, working, and even while trying to relax at home is twisting our vertebrae out of alignment and creating strain and pain on muscles, ligaments, and joints. A scientifically designed spine and back support device that uses precision biometric technology to perfectly align the back and spine for all-day comfort and support, creating perfect posture for your back every time you sit down. Now features extra-wide acupressure comfort pads as well as an extended height back panel for even more support, making it